Okay, so here's the function, and they want you to find the maximum value of the slope. It's a periodic function, so it's going to have the maximum value at multiple values of x. In other words, every period there's going to be a maximum value. And here's the period. 5/4 is the frequency. The period is the reciprocal of that, or 4/5 times 2 pi, or 8 pi over 5. And just for future reference, 1/2 of the period, of course, equals 4 pi over 5. Okay, so here's the slope as a function of x, y prime, the derivative. I think that part's clear, that you're just taking the derivative of a composite function. And if you want to find the maximum value of the slope, the traditional or conventional way to do that is to take the second derivative, which will be 25/16 cosine 5/4 x, and you would set that to 0 and then solve for x. But before that we do that, there is a shortcut, and he alludes to the shortcut. If this is the slope, y prime, and it's dependent on a sinusoidal function, sine of 5/4 x, it's going to fluctuate and between a minimum and a maximum value. It's all dependent on this factor here. So when 5/4 x equals pi over 2, the sine of pi over 2 is 1. So that's going to be the maximum. This can never become more than 1. And so therefore y prime would be 1 plus 5/4 or 9/4. So that's the shortcut. And of course there's multiple values of x which produces this maximum slope. It's going to be pi over 2, but it's also going to be pi over 2 plus 1 period, which is 8 pi over 5, or 2 periods, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll come back to that. But if you go half a period, which would be pi over 2 plus 4 pi over 5, that's when you get the sign equaling -1, a minimum. And so remember, when you set y double prime, now we're talking about the second derivative, when you set it equal to 0, it may be either a maximum or a minimum at that value, and that's when you have to look more closely. But otherwise, when you set this to 0, it's the same thing. The cosine goes to 0 when 5/4 x goes to pi over 2. And what he's done here is he's added in a half a period. So half a period being just pi, and he's saying y equals 0 whenever x of n equals 4 pi over 10 plus 5/4 pi times n, and then he draws the number line, and when n equals 0, then 5/4 x just equals pi over 2, and we already know that's when it's a maximum. But what the point is that the slope of the second derivative is positive between 0 and x naught, and then it's negative. And so that's why you know this is a maximum, because it would be, y double prime would look something like this. And so if the slope of the derivative is positive here and negative here and 0 right here, well, that's going to be a maximum because it's going to be convex upward. And whereas this, here's another time when y double prime equals 0, that's x1. But here, the slope of the derivatives is going from negative to positive. So when it's 0, it's at a minimum. So that's what that's all about. I hope that's clear. If not, we could do a quick Zoom tonight.